You have faith. You pray. You read the Bible. You trust God. But still, there are days you wake up with a strange feeling, as if something invisible is pressing on you from the inside. This isn't a lack of faith. This isn't spiritual weakness. This is a battle, but not one fought outside. It's a battle fought within the four walls of your own mind. The 59th Psalm wasn't written for comfortable people. It was written for someone surrounded, pressured, watched, threatened. David wasn't at peace when he wrote it. He was in danger, and yet he did not allow fear to take control of his inner world. Here is the key few understand. David didn't just pray for God to protect him. David declared who God was for him, while his mind wanted to panic. Because the real enemy isn't always the person criticizing you, the situation worrying you, or the unresolved problem. The most dangerous enemy is the thought that replays in silence, making you doubt your protection, your worth, and your future. Today, we won't read Psalm 59 as an ancient text. Today, we're going to activate it as a spiritual code, one that protects your mind, aligns your subconscious, and fortifies your faith from the inside out. Because it's no use saying, God is my refuge, if inside your mind keeps whispering something bad is going to happen. This message is for you, who believes in God, but is tired of feeling constantly on alert. For you, who prays but still carries anxiety. For you, who trusts but deep down fears falling again. Today, we do something different. Today, you won't just pray. Today, you will reprogram the way you protect yourself from within. You're not failing your faith. You needed to hear that, because so many carry a silent guilt, thinking that if they feel fear, fatigue, or anxiety, they're doing something wrong spiritually. But that's not true. Some battles aren't won by intention alone. They're won with understanding. And one of the toughest is when your heart wants to trust, but your mind was trained for years to anticipate danger, loss, or rejection. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Maybe you get up and nothing bad happens, but nothing good happens inside you either. Your body moves, your routine advances, but there's a constant tension, as if you can never let your guard down. You pray. You say amen. You read promises. But in the background, a voice asks, what if it doesn't work? What if it happens again? What if this time I'm not protected? That voice isn't a lack of faith. It's an old program running in your subconscious. Many believe faith automatically erases fear, but the truth is deeper. Faith coexists with thoughts, memories, and experiences that left a mark. And when they aren't healed, those memories become filters. That's why sometimes you hear a promise, but can't find rest. Not because God isn't acting, but because your interior is still in survival mode. David felt this too. He wasn't a stranger to fear. He was a king, hunted, watched, threatened. He slept knowing they could come for him in the night. And yet, he decided something crucial. He would not allow his mind to ally itself with the danger. Psalm 59 was born there, not from calm, but from pressure, not from comfort, but from a real, desperate need for protection. This is where the message gets personal, because maybe your enemy has no face, but it has a voice. Its name is memory. Its name is worry. Its name is negative anticipation. It shows up when you try to rest and can't. When everything seems fine, but inside, you don't feel safe. And that is exhausting. It tires you more than any external problem. So today, we won't pretend everything is okay. We'll do something more powerful. Recognize where the real battle is. Because when you stop fighting yourself, protection starts to be felt. And Psalm 59 doesn't come to demand more faith from you. It comes to teach you how to take refuge correctly. Psalm 59 wasn't born in a temple. It was born on a night of danger. David wrote it while being watched, surrounded, pursued. Men were waiting for the exact moment to trap him. Understand this. David didn't deny the threat. He didn't say, everything's fine, when it wasn't. What he did was far more profound. He decided where he would place his internal focus. This is where the psalm becomes a code, not just a prayer. David understood what we might call internal dominion. He knew that if he let his mind fill with fear, he was already defeated before the enemy even knocked on the door. So, in the middle of the siege, he declares, "Because of your strength, I will wait for you, for God is my refuge." That phrase isn't poetry. It's a direct order to the mind. When David says, "I will wait," he's not talking about passivity. He's talking about positioning. He's saying, "I will not react from panic. I will respond from certainty." Psalm 59 is a real-time reprogramming. Every time David declares who God is for him, he is weakening the voice of fear and strengthening the internal image of protection. This is key. The subconscious doesn't distinguish between a real threat and an imagined one. It reacts the same. If your mind constantly imagines danger, your body lives in constant alert. David knew this, even without those words. That's why he repeats ideas, concepts, images: refuge, strength, high tower, protection. This isn't religious repetition. This is strategic repetition. This is where many fail today. They read the psalm once and expect a permanent result. But David didn't declare it once. He sustained it. He repeated it. He inhabited it. Psalm 59 doesn't just ask God to protect you from the outside. It seeks for you to position yourself on the inside. Because when your interior aligns with protection, fear loses its authority. David doesn't define himself as a victim. He doesn't say, "I am persecuted." He says, "God is my refuge." He doesn't identify with the problem. He identifies with the solution. That changes everything. Because what you identify with governs your behavior. If you identify with danger, you'll live reacting. If you identify with refuge, you'll live responding. This psalm is a declaration of identity before it is a petition. David doesn't start by asking. He starts by remembering. Remembering who God is and who he is in relation to God. And there lies the hidden code. When your mind remembers who protects you, your internal system stops living in flight mode. Psalm 59 doesn't always eliminate the external battle immediately, but it does eliminate the internal war. And when the internal war ends, protection begins to be felt. The true enemy almost never presents itself head-on. It doesn't come with a name or a face. It doesn't knock on the door announcing itself. The most dangerous enemy operates in silence. It infiltrates the mind and disguises itself as logical thought, as normal worry, as "I'm just being realistic." But this enemy has a devastating effect. It steals your peace before the problem even occurs. Many believe they're fighting people, circumstances, or external situations, when in reality, they're fighting an internal narrative that repeats every day. Thoughts that say, "I've lived this before. I know how it ends. It's going to happen to me again. I'm not safe. Something will go wrong." And every time that thought is repeated, it grows stronger. Not because it's true, but because it's accepted. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Your mind doesn't work with faith or disbelief. It works with images and repetitions. The subconscious doesn't evaluate if something is spiritual or negative. It simply obeys what is repeated to it with emotion. That's why someone can love God deeply and still live in constant alert. Not for lack of faith, but because their mind was trained for years to anticipate danger. Psalm 59 understands this with surgical precision. David doesn't just ask for protection. He describes the danger, but he doesn't stay there. He immediately redirects his focus: refuge, strength, high tower, shelter. Every word is an image that replaces another image. Where there was once persecution, now there is a tower. Where there was threat, now there is height. David doesn't fight fear by screaming at it. He disarms it by replacing it. Self-sabotage is born when one part of you wants to move forward, but another part is still waiting for the blow. That internal division exhausts you. It tires you out without you doing anything. It drains your energy before the day even begins. That's why some people aren't physically tired, but live emotionally drained. They're not at war on the outside. They're at war on the inside. Fear doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it presents itself as excessive caution, as perfectionism, as procrastination. But it always has the same goal: to keep you in a state of defense, not expansion. And while your mind is defending, your life cannot advance with freedom. David understood he couldn't let his mind become enemy territory. That's why Psalm 59 isn't a desperate plea. It's a firm affirmation. It's a man deciding what truth he will inhabit, even when circumstances say otherwise. And that decision is pure metaphysics. What you choose to believe consistently ends up becoming your dominant experience. Maybe today your enemy isn't a person, but a thought that returns every night. Maybe it's not a real threat, but a memory that never healed. Maybe it's not a lack of faith, but an excess of alertness. And recognizing that doesn't make you less spiritual. It makes you more conscious. Because only when you identify the real enemy can you use the right weapon. If this message is speaking directly to you, don't ignore it. This isn't the kind of content you watch for entertainment. You use it as a tool. You are at Napoleon Inspires, a space where faith is understood, activated, and aligned with the mind. Now, before we begin this prayer, stop for a moment. Don't just keep listening on autopilot. Bring your attention inward. Maybe you're carrying tension in your chest, your neck, your head. Maybe there are thoughts that won't quiet down easily. Don't push them away. Don't judge them. Acknowledge them. Tell God exactly how you are. No embellishment. No formulas. Because the most powerful prayer isn't the prettiest one. It's the most honest one. Pause. Music is soft, supportive. Father, in this moment I come before you just as I am. Not as I think I should be, but as I truly feel. I come with thoughts that unsettle me, with emotions I don't always understand, and with a fatigue that doesn't always show on the outside. Today, I don't come pretending strength. I come to take refuge, because your word says you are a refuge in the day of trouble. And today, I decide to believe it, not just with my mouth, but with my entire being. Lord, I recognize there are moments when my mind runs faster than my faith. Moments when fear outpaces trust, when worry imposes itself before peace. Today, I don't hide that from you. Today, I bring it into the light, because I know that when I name what disturbs me, it loses power over me. Right now, I surrender every thought that doesn't come from you, every image of danger, every negative expectation that has replayed in silence. Like David in Psalm 59, I lift my voice from a place of pressure, but not of defeat. Lord, you know the enemies that surround me. Some have a face. Others live only in my mind. You know what situations have made me feel vulnerable, what experiences made me live on alert, what memories still try to govern my present. Today, I don't run from them. Today, I place them under your authority. Your word says, because of your strength, I will wait for you, for God is my refuge. And today, I make that conscious declaration. I wait in you, not because everything is resolved, but because you're greater than any threat. You're my refuge when my mind wants to panic. You're my strength when my energy is spent. You're my high tower when I feel overwhelmed. Lord, in this moment, I begin to cleanse my interior. I renounce the thoughts that tell me something bad will happen. I renounce the constant expectation of danger. I renounce living anticipating loss, failure, or rejection. Those thoughts do not come from you, and they no longer have permission to rule my mind. I tear down every imagination that rises against the knowledge of your truth. I declare that my mind submits to your word, not to my fears. Father, just as David did not allow his mind to ally with the enemy, today I make the same decision. I will not feed scenarios that don't exist. I will not live on alert for things that haven't happened. I will not keep repeating internal stories that only produce anxiety. Today, I choose to believe that you go before me, that you watch my steps, and that your protection doesn't depend on my perfection, but on your faithfulness. Right now, I receive your protection consciously, not as an idea, but as a spiritual reality. I feel my breathing calm. I feel my body begin to relax. I feel the internal tension start to release. And if any emotion surfaces, I won't suppress it. I'll let it flow, because I know it's part of the process of resting. Lord, I declare that you are my strong tower. I run to you and am lifted up. I declare I am covered by your presence, surrounded by your care, upheld by your love. I declare I am not exposed. I am not alone. I am not unprotected. Even if I don't yet see the solution, I know I do not walk without backup. Today, I cleanse my identity. I'm not a victim of circumstances. I'm not a prisoner of my past. I'm not a slave to my thoughts. I am a child. I am an heir. I am someone who lives under divine authority. And from that identity, I reject every lie that has made me doubt my value, my purpose, or my future. Lord, you know the specific moments when fear appears. Maybe at night, maybe upon waking, maybe when I receive a message, a call, or some news. Today, I surrender those moments to you, and I declare that when fear tries to return, your truth will be stronger. Your word will be my automatic response. As Psalm 59 says, "But I will sing of your strength. In the morning I will sing of your love. For you are my fortress, my refuge in times of trouble." Today, I decide to praise before seeing the result. I decide to trust before having proof. I decide to rest even when I don't have all the answers. Because my security isn't in understanding everything, it's in knowing who guards me. Father, I seal this prayer with gratitude. Thank you because your protection is already operating, even if I can't perceive it with my senses. Thank you because something is being ordered within me right now. Thank you because my mind is learning to rest in your truth. Thank you because the peace you give doesn't depend on circumstances, but on your presence. In this moment, I make an internal decision. Every time my mind tries to return to fear, I will remember who my refuge is. Every time anxiety appears, I will return to this truth. Every time a negative thought tries to impose itself, I will replace it with your word. Because today, I didn't just pray. Today, I position myself. And from this position, I declare, I am protected. I am directed. I am upheld. Not by my strength, but by your power. Not by my control, but by your care. I rest in you. I trust in you. I dwell in you. And from this place, I face the day, not as someone fleeing, but as someone safeguarded. Amen. Throughout biblical history, God's protection was never an abstract concept. It was a concrete experience. It didn't always prevent the battle, but it always secured the inner victory before the external one. When Daniel was thrown into the lion's den, it wasn't because God abandoned him. It was because his faith was being displayed. Daniel didn't enter the den as a victim. He entered as someone who had already decided to trust. And that prior decision is what shut the lions' mouths. Think about it. The lions were there. The danger was real. But fear did not govern Daniel. The protection didn't come because the problem disappeared. It came because his interior did not align itself with the threat. That is the same logic of Psalm 59. David was surrounded, but his mind was elevated. When your interior is elevated, the external loses power. Remember Peter in prison. Chained, guarded, iron gates locked. Humanly, there was no way out. Yet, while he was sleeping, an angel touched him and the chains fell. Peter was asleep in the middle of danger. That isn't carelessness. That is spiritual rest. Only someone who truly trusts can sleep surrounded by threats. That is a clear sign of internal alignment. Jesus himself gave us the perfect image when he calmed the storm. The disciples were screaming. The wind roared. The waves battered the boat. But he was asleep, not because he ignored the danger, but because he knew who had authority. The storm didn't calm when the disciples panicked. It calmed when authority spoke, and that authority was first established within. These stories aren't in the Bible just to be admired. They're there to be imitated, not to copy external actions, but to adopt internal postures. Daniel didn't react. Peter didn't despair. Jesus didn't lose his calm. They all shared something in common. Their identity was clear before the test arrived. Psalm 59 works the same way. It doesn't promise the absence of enemies. It promises a superior position. David says God will set him on high, out of reach of those who rise against him. That's not just a physical location. It's a mental and spiritual perspective. When you are in a high place, you see differently. What once seemed like a threat now looks small. Maybe today your den has no lions, but it has insistent thoughts. Maybe your prison has no chains, but it has worries. Maybe your storm isn't external, but internal. And still, the same principle applies. Protection begins when you decide not to let fear govern your interior. God doesn't just protect. He repositions. He doesn't just cover. He elevates. He doesn't just guard. He transforms. Every biblical story of protection is also a story of a change in level. After the den, Daniel was exalted. After prison, Peter kept preaching with power. After the storm, the disciples encountered a greater authority. Psalm 59 isn't the end of the story. It's the turning point. It's the moment you decide from where you will face what comes next. And when you choose the high place, when you choose the refuge, when you choose trust, something is reordered. Not always outside first, but always inside. And when the internal is put in order, the external inevitably follows. Now comes the part that turns everything we've said into something practical and sustainable. Because faith that doesn't translate into daily decisions remains just an intention. This is where the Napoleon Hill mindset fits with precision. Your life doesn't change because of what you desire. It changes because of what you decide to sustain. A decision isn't an emotional event. It's an internal posture that is repeated until it becomes a habit. Hill taught that self-image governs behavior. The Bible says the same thing in other words. As he thinks in his heart, so is he. If you see yourself as vulnerable, you will act from defense. If you see yourself as protected, you will act from calm. Psalm 59 doesn't seek for you to feel protected for a few minutes. It seeks for you to adopt an identity of protection. Because when identity changes, decisions change on their own. Here is the code. Every day, consciously or not, you decide from where you will live. From fear or from refuge. From negative anticipation or from trust. From the past or from the promise. That decision manifests in small acts. How you react, how you speak, how you interpret what happens. And those small, repeated acts create a pattern. The pattern creates destiny. Napoleon Hill spoke of directed autosuggestion. The Bible speaks of meditating on the word day and night. These aren't opposing ideas. They are parallel. Both point to the same truth. What you repeat with emotion and consistency ends up governing your mind. That's why David repeated who God was for him. Not because God forgot, but because his mind needed to remember. Spiritual habit isn't repeating for the sake of repeating. It's training your interior. Just as a muscle strengthens with repetition, trust strengthens when you choose, again and again, to return to the same truth. It's not about denying what you feel. It's about deciding which truth will have the final word. Today, you can make a simple but powerful decision. Do not feed thoughts that don't protect you. Do not allow your inner dialogue to go against your faith. Do not live reacting to every external stimulus. That decision, sustained, changes the entire direction of your life. Psalm 59 stops being a text when it becomes a practice. When every time fear arises, you remember your refuge. Every time anxiety appears, you choose the high place. Every time doubt speaks, you answer with a greater truth. That is where the code is activated. And when the code is activated, protection stops being occasional and becomes your natural state. Now, let's fulfill the promise. Here is the 3-minute ritual you can use every day to activate Psalm 59 consciously. You don't need a special place or a perfect posture. You only need intention and presence. Step 1, breathe. Inhale slowly through your nose, counting to 4. Hold for a moment. Exhale through your mouth, counting to 6. Repeat this 3 times. As you do, tell your body, you are not in danger. Breathing is the fastest signal to exit the alert state. Step 2, declare. Place a hand on your chest. This gesture connects your mind with your interior. Now, declare out loud, even in a whisper. Because of your strength, I will wait for God. For God is my refuge. Don't rush it. Let each word settle. You are not informing God. You are aligning your mind with the truth. Step 3, visualize. Close your eyes. Imagine a strong tower. High, firm, unshakable. Visualize yourself walking into it. Outside stay the worries, the insistent thoughts, the negative scenarios. Inside, there is silence, stability, and protection. Remain there for a few seconds. This ritual isn't magic. It's internal training. Every time you practice it, your mind learns a new response to fear. And in time, what you do consciously today will become your natural reaction. When you repeat this ritual upon waking or before sleeping, you're teaching your inner world that there is a refuge available. And when the refuge becomes familiar, anxiety loses its strength. Music swells to a final, empowering climax. If you've made it this far, it wasn't just to hear a prayer. It was to change an internal position. Something has shifted within you, even if you can't explain it in words. Don't ignore that sensation. It's the rest that appears when you stop fighting inside and choose to inhabit the right refuge. Remember this: God's protection is not occasional. It is constant when you decide to live from it. You don't need to feel strong all the time. You need to remember where your strength is. You are at Napoleon Inspires, a space where faith is lived with consciousness and direction. Before you go, write in the comments, "I am protected and in peace." Write it as a declaration, not just a phrase. Share this with someone fighting in silence. Sometimes, God uses a single word to change an entire day. May you have a day that is covered, firm, and calm.